The agenda is set. Hello, everyone. I'm Brent Goff in Berlin. Today on the show, sexual harassment in Germany. A country with a female chancellor should be beyond this, but it's not. Men misbehaving and short circuits between Mars and Venus. It's time to talk. A senior politician with a tongue that offends women. He's having nothing to do with an uproar that bears his name and has thousands of German women saying enough is enough with sexism in this society. Great Britain and Europe. Is it time to file for divorce? Prime Minister David Cameron has outlined what he sees as irreconcilable differences. Cameron has drawn a line in the political sand. He wants a major overhaul of the European Union to make it competitive on the global market. If not, he's willing to lead the exit campaign. Today, arguments for keeping Britain in the club. And it is a permanent scar on the face of 20th century Germany, the rise of the Nazis and the genocide that they perfected. Today, Germany is considered a role model in the politics of memory and reconciliation. Coming to terms with the past remains a top political priority. On the show today, we ask how much remembering is enough. Well, I've invited three people today to talk, argue, and pry apart these headlines. My first guest is a prime example of one generation asking another, what did you know? And what did you do? I'm happy to welcome to the show today Moritz Pfeiffer. He's a historian and an author. Moritz, you published a book on your grandfather's support for the Nazis, and you wrote that your grandfather never expressed regret. You call it a strong deficit of moral judgment. Let me bring it now to you, your generation. Do you have a special responsibility as a young German to turn that deficit into a surplus?
We cannot change our past. We have to face it and look forward.
All right, we're going to talk about the ability to look forward with the past in just a moment. My second guest had a direct influence on David Cameron's challenge to the European Union. He is in close contact with number 10 Downing Street. I'm happy to welcome to the show Stephen Booth. He is research director at Open Europe, a think tank in London and Brussels dedicated to reforming Europe. That's what's on your website, Stephen. I have to ask you, what is so special about Britain that you and Cameron and many Britons themselves think that the country deserves a special agreement? Why does Britain deserve a new deal with the EU?
Well, I think the Eurozone crisis has made change in the European Union inevitable, and Britain, as the biggest non-Euro member state, has a responsibility to set out how a new Europe could look.
All right, there you're saying size matters in the European Union. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. And my next guest says Germany is stuck in a 1970s gender debate and that men need to learn how to behave properly in the work world. I'm happy to welcome Sabine Rennefanz. She's a political correspondent at the Berliner Zeitung here in Berlin. It's a newspaper. I hope I'm on my best behavior today, Sabine. You've covered this latest sexual harassment story to the fullest here in Germany. You say this story with the FDP politician, Mr. Brudler, has become a catharsis for countless women in Germany who have been afraid to speak out against sexism and sexual harassment. Is it really that bad here in Germany?
I think it's a much bigger story than just about one politician. It's about power, and it's about the question, does half of the population have half of the power?
All right, we're going to talk about power dynamics in just a moment. Speaking of power, Germany has a female chancellor, and she is very popular among women and men. And you would think that would point to a society with a modern, mature attitude towards women, especially for men. Well, try selling that at a dinner party here in Berlin now, and you will be as popular as the bubonic plague. Thousands of women have jumped onto social media in the last week, sharing experiences of daily sexism and harassment that begins at the breakfast table, continues in the office, and seems to have no end. And I can attest that a lot of men here don't want to talk about sexism, or they don't take it seriously. There is a lot of subtle chuckling going on in the men's locker room these days. So I ask, why is it so hard for men and women to work and live together without a constant whiff of sex in the air?
The outcry was triggered by an article about a senior FDP politician, Rainer Brudler, in a weekly magazine. The female author said he made inappropriate comments to her. Internet journalist Anna Wieczorek then helped open the gates to a deluge of complaints about sexist behavior in Germany. By setting up the Twitter address #Aufschrei, or Outcry, she's provided a platform for thousands of women. Many Germans want to express their opinions on what's acceptable behavior between the sexes. The question now is, will the debate continue, or is it, as some people have said, just a storm in a teacup?
Sabine, I have to ask you, what's your opinion about this? Why are so many women coming out now and talking about being sexually harassed? What is different today from 10 days ago?
I think there are many reasons for that. I think generally there's a change in atmosphere. It started with the debates of quota in companies, because in Germany there are very few women in senior leading positions in companies compared to other European countries. You have, for example, in the 200 biggest companies, you have 200 board members and only 15 are female. And this is already celebrated as a massive success.
Okay, that's celebrated as a massive success, but that doesn't explain why we had this silence up until about a week ago. I mean, women are just coming out of the woodwork now talking about this. And I'm trying to identify what was the inhibitor here in this society. What was keeping women from talking about this harassment?
I think it also might have to do with the generational change. Women who are over 40, I would say, are a little bit used to swallow the chuckling, as you say it, the gentleman's joke, the so-called Herrenwitz, and just to get on with it. And there's a younger generation, around 25, who just doesn't want to do that anymore.
And is that what is going on here? Is, let's say, people 45 and older, they behave differently than people younger than that? Are we looking at but we're looking at the generation that's actually in power as a generation that you would say the men still have not learned how to work respectfully with women?
It's always difficult to generalize, of course, but I think there's a grain of truth in this, because I mean, there's always, wherever you go, the majority of people in leading positions is men. Even, I mean, you mentioned the Chancellor Merkel. It's great to have a woman.
She's the exception, though, right?
Yeah, it's great to have a woman on top, but 67% of the MPs in the German Parliament are male.
Yeah, and I mean, I just want to throw out some other statistics here. The Ministry for Women and Families here in Germany says 58% of German women say that they have been subject to sexual harassment. Most of that has happened on the job. When it comes to women being in executive positions, a government study in 2010 found that male executives view women executives as problematic unless they can sexualize the female executive. I mean, there's this big white elephant in the room here, but at the end of the day, it comes down to sex, doesn't it? And how you are able, what's politically correct and what's not. And is it maybe that here in Germany, the men haven't mastered the art of being politically correct?
I would like to disagree. I think it's not about sex. It's about exploiting different power situations. And in the end, also this case that caused this whole debate, it was about a powerful man using and harassing a younger woman that is younger and is in a less powerful position. So I think men realize that more and more women are pushing into top positions, and they are a bit afraid of having to share their power.
I've always been amazed too here in Germany why more women aren't angry about the situation. You know, you look at schools, for example. You have schools that are open only for half of the day, which means someone has to be there at 12 or 1 o'clock to pick up the children. It's usually the mother, which means she can't work. That's one example. There's even a term in German, a raven mother, Rabenmutter, if she works instead of staying home with the child. And this goes back, and I mean, Moritz can maybe even speak to this, this goes even back to the Nazi ideals of motherhood being the highest good. Do you think the way men look at women in this society, is it antiquated? Is it something that goes back decades, if not hundreds of years, and it's something that just has not had a meeting with modernity yet?
I think it's true. I think from the outside, a lot of people now think Germany is a super modern country, open, international. But this part of the relationship between men and women somehow has, in my opinion, stuck in the 70s. And of course, it's not as bad as in Egypt or India. We're talking about day-to-day sexism, really. But I think it's great that it's being addressed now.
What's it like for you, Sabine? I mean, you're a woman, you're a journalist, you're much like the woman who claims that the FDP politician harassed her. What do you experience?
I think my personal experience are not so important here, but when this article came out, of course, I felt, yeah, I mean, almost all women that I know have experienced something similar.
So you can relate to what the women have been saying, for example, on Twitter?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Let me pull in our gentlemen here who are on the panel too. Are we being too unfair with the men? Moritz, I'll start with you. You know, you're German. Are German men getting a bad rap here in this story?
Well, I don't know. It's for example, I've got another impression when I studied in Freiburg, and there I got in contact with a lot of exchange students from all over Europe, and I spent half a year in Argentina, and talking with the women, talking with people from these countries being in Germany, they told me, the women told me, they didn't know about what the German men were thinking about them. They said, "Oh,
living here."
Yeah. No, when they were living here, when they were doing the exchange here, they had the feeling of not being pretty, not being interesting to the German men, because German men don't say anything at all.
Ah, so they would actually like men to be more expressive.
Yeah.
All right.
Totally.
Sabine, what do you say to that?
Well, since Moritz is also part of this younger generation, I would say that there's definitely something changing in the younger generation. I think this whole debate is a little bit young against old people, and I think it is a sign that Germany is changing, and the younger men are maybe a little bit insecure how to behave around a woman, what to do, what not to do, and you know, there has been this book from the American reporter, The End of Men, coming out, and it's all sort of feeding in the sense of that the end of the white male has come.
Let me pick up on that. Is that what we're talking about here? Stephen, what do you say? What's the view in the UK about this?
Well, I think, first of all, there's a big distinction between issues around sexual harassment and kind of equality, a general concept. As you mentioned before, there's this issue about is society set up for equality? Is childcare an issue? I think these are different issues to ones that are basically about outright behaviour, which is clearly unacceptable. I think those are two different questions.
Yeah.
But coming from the British context, I think there's been a big change in the last, I mean, I'm relatively young, but the last 20 years, where this culture of political correctness, I mean, I think people are very careful about how they act in the workplace.
And isn't that a good thing, though? Do you feel like in the Anglo-Saxon world that there's more sensitivity for that, that you want to be sensitive to the people that you work with?
Yeah, sure. I think that's true. I think that one problem with it in the UK or in the Anglo-Saxon world, as you put it, is it's gone beyond the sexism. It's gone to people are almost scared to say what they think.
Right.
But I think, of course, we need to kind of treat people in equal manner and so on.
So, a lot of discussions that I've been hearing, especially on Facebook and Twitter, is what can I say? What can a man say to a woman, for example? Can a man come into the office, Sabine, and say, that blue sweater looks nice on you? Is that a compliment, or is that a man trying to hit on you? And is the answer actually depends on what you think, doesn't it?
I think it's a bit ridiculous to make this... or one makes it a little bit simple. It's all about respect, mutual respect, and women and men are not different species. I mean, we're all human beings, so I just want to be treated with respect. And
right.
If I can comment on your dark tie, then,
yes.
I mean, it's fine.
Right, exactly. Right. And you're not hitting on me. You said also that you want this debate to be about equality. not so much to be about the sexism that is going on, but the fact that women still are not treated the same as men. What has to change then for equality to be reached in this country?
Well, I think there are really some good moves being made with the introduction of the quota of 40% that the EU Commissioner Reding has introduced, and hopefully the law will be passed in 2016.
That's 40%.
40% for
the supervisory boards for companies, publicly
traded
traded companies.
Yes,
okay.
Exactly. So that's the first step. In Germany, we have a similar discussion. There's a massive discussion happening among media journalists, because also in the media, only 98% of the editors-in-chiefs for newspapers and television are male. And we're also thinking about the 30% quota. So I think this is a good discussion. Gender payment equality is another big issue, and then step by step.
Do you feel let down by Angela Merkel? She is a woman. Shouldn't she be carrying the torch for equality for women?
Well, she also wants to be re-elected, right? And half of the electorate is male.
Yeah, but still, I mean, see, that's the point, right? It's like, why can't men be in favor of that? I mean, why can't men say, yeah, I want my wife to make the same amount of money that I would make if I were doing her job? It's like no one wants to say that out loud. Would you say Angela Merkel has let the women down?
Under Angela Merkel's government, at least, the whole childcare situation has improved. I mean, totally surprisingly, nobody would have expected that from a conservative government, but there's the support for parents who want to look after their children. They're building much more kitas,
that's like daycare centers for children.
They're extending schools that have longer lessons, like, so-called Ganztagsschulen.
That's schools that goes throughout the entire day.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
I personally don't feel let down. I think for a conservative government, she's done much, much more. Contrary to, for example, Margaret Thatcher in Britain.
Yes.
She wanted to be a better man.
Right. Yeah. Stephen, you agree with that? Are you as much of a man as Margaret Thatcher was? That's what she's asking.
I'm not, we want to comment on that.
All right.
But I think the issue about childcare is an interesting one, because that's not simply about equality. It's about looking at the bigger picture. It's actually about kind of competitiveness and economic dynamism. We're trying to compete with countries across the world, and actually unlocking kind of half the workforce is a good thing in itself, not simply on an equality ground.
Yeah, and maybe too, demographics will also help solve this problem, because if you look at in all the countries around the world, the students now going into university, the majority now are women, and perhaps that will play out then in the corporate world in 10 to 15 years. We will have to wait and see. All right, we need to move on. If you have it would have been, very informative and entertaining if you could have been a fly on the wall at the World Economic Forum in Switzerland last week. Now, everyone was talking about Britain. To be exact, Prime Minister David Cameron and his notice to Europe: reform, renegotiate, and give us a special deal, or we may just pack up and leave the club. Now, there was a collective shock in Davos. The world's political and economic elite gasped at Cameron's audacity. But polls show that Britons are sick and tired of Brussels bureaucracy. They want changes that look more like Britain. If not, they will exercise their right to exit. Today we're going to talk about why leaving the EU, and I admit the prospect does get people's attention, why an exit could be a disaster for Britain.
Thank you very much. Britain's Prime Minister David Cameron has promised a simple in-out referendum on EU membership. He's held out the prospect of campaigning in favor of remaining in the bloc if Britain can strike a new deal over its membership.
Let me say now that if we can negotiate such an arrangement, I will campaign for it with all my heart and all my soul. Because I believe something very deeply, that Britain's national interest is best served in a flexible, adaptable and open European Union, and that such a European Union is best with Britain in it. Today,
critics say London cannot cherry-pick the EU policies it wants to pursue. But is Britain right to criticize what can often be a monolithic institution? With the ongoing euro crisis and growing European bureaucracy, surely the answer is less and not more Europe.
So, Stephen, is Britain preparing the path to leave the European Union?
No, I don't think so. I think that David Cameron was quite clear about what his goal was to see Britain as part of a reformed European Union. And I think the other issue is that is often misrepresented, if you like, is that Britain is only after a special carve-out for itself, a special deal. I think what Cameron was trying to explain was that he thinks that some of these challenges are challenges that not just face the UK, but they face Europe as a whole.
But what's a reformed EU? Is that an EU that will be molded in the form of Great Britain?
No, I think there are two issues. I mean, the first one that is probably top of the list from a British kind of national interest perspective, and is the fact that the Eurozone crisis is driving change. Those countries are going to move closer together. And for a country that isn't going to join the single currency like Britain, but there are others too. There's Sweden, there are other countries. We need to have a new architecture which basically makes it equally legitimate to be a Euro member state and a non-Euro member state within the wider European Union.
Do you feel like Britain has become a second-class member of the EU because it's not in the Eurozone?
Well, I think that's a strategic mistake, if you like, that the British government has made up until this point, because...
What's the mistake?
Well, basically, all the EU treaties say that the currency of the European Union is the euro. The UK has its own opt-out, and Denmark has its own opt-out. So rather than actually looking for a UK-only deal, what Cameron is actually trying to do is broaden that concept out.
But see, that deal is already there. You know, the German Chancellor Angela Merkel said in Davos last week that the purpose of the Eurozone was to provide a currency union that countries could join if they wish, but they could also choose to not join.
Well,
she said that she wanted that opt-out option to always be there.
Well, that's great news, but the problem is that opt-out doesn't actually exist in legal form. At the moment, the EU treaty says that every country is going to join the euro. I mean, Sweden is in perpetual breach of the EU treaties by refusing to sign up to the euro. So I think it's a great thing to hear that the Chancellor is welcome to the idea of formalising that fact, because that has to be the way that Europe has to go. If you say that you join the euro or else, you're just going to drive people, and especially the UK, towards the exit door. Yeah,
but what Cameron is saying is you change to meet our desires or else. Isn't that what he's telling Brussels?
I don't think he is. I mean, there's clearly pressure from the UK, and the referendum aspect of it is somewhat provocative and getting people's attention. But I mean, what he's actually saying is not necessarily that controversial, I wouldn't say. I mean, it's about, he's talking about the challenge of competitiveness, which a German politician would be equally concerned
but Stephen, it is controversial. He's saying you meet our demands, or in 2017, I'm going to put it up to a referendum, and the people will probably vote to leave, which would be a disaster. He is, in a way, blackmailing Brussels, isn't he? I mean, if he wanted a decision made on this, why doesn't he call for a referendum immediately?
Well, because there's no point in having a referendum immediately, because we haven't had the negotiations. I mean,
but isn't that he's holding that weight over Brussels, isn't he? He's saying, give us what we want, give Britain a special deal, or we will leave the EU.
Well, first, I don't agree with you on the special deal point. I think he is looking broader than that. But the referendum issue is obviously the one that is going to be the most contentious. But the fact is the British people haven't had a say for a long time. And the fact is that the European Union that we joined in the 1970s is radically different now. And I think every politician in Britain would recognise that a referendum is almost inevitable at some stage, maybe not 2017, but at some stage. And I think also every politician in the UK would recognise that there's clearly a huge democratic deficit between what happens in the UK and what happens at the European level.
But why is the criticism coming then from Great Britain? Why aren't we hearing this so loudly from other countries? What is it about the UK that makes it qualified to put these types of ultimatums out there?
Well, I think being the biggest non-Euro member state, the UK is clearly going to be the loudest voice. But I think there are other voices. I mean, the Swedish government, too, has joined the UK in opting out of various things that are designed for the future of the Eurozone. For the banking union is an example where the Czech Republic, the Swedes and the UK have all said already they're not going to join. Other countries may make their mind up either way. So I think the UK, by virtue of being one of the three biggest countries in the European Union, one of the biggest economies, has a right to, but firstly, safeguard its interests in the single market, because some things that the Eurozone are trying to do have the potential to spill over to the wider single market and trade.
We're always talking about money here, aren't we? The Economist said that Britons still think of their relationship with Europe as a transaction. Why can't Britain, feel something for EU. Why is it a transaction? I mean, you're just as European as the Germans are, aren't you?
Well, I think that's a true reflection of where the British public are. I'm sure we're going to hear from Moritz later a slightly different take on kind of what Europe means, because we took different conclusions out of the end of the Second War. The European project is not an ideological one, as it is for many countries on the continent. It isn't the same in the UK sense. So I think the UK public has always come at it rather cold.
But you've benefited, but the UK, the economy has benefited tremendously. I mean, you know, you have a huge trade relationship with the EU. Mm-hmm. If you were to lose that, if your companies all had to pay tariffs, it would be a disaster. I mean, you benefit every day by being in the EU as it is. I mean, do you understand the people in France, in Italy, in Germany who say that you are cherry picking, that you want to get the best things for Britain and everyone else can just fend for themselves?
Well, it's interesting. I think I would characterise most countries' approach towards Europe is about getting the best deal they can for their country. That's the way.
Do you really believe that? I mean, let me ask our Germans here on the panel. Do you get the sense that when Germany and France go into talks about the European Union, that they're going in pushing a national agenda? Isn't there the perception that, considering what Angela Merkel is doing right now to save the Eurozone, that many things are being done for the benefit of the whole Union? I mean, what do you guys think? Do you agree with that?
I think the problem is that Britain, for such a long time, has been always sitting on the fences and has not really been engaging with the big questions in European politics. And now suddenly they come up and have their demands. It's just like a little bit awkward, you know. If somebody in a group is always not really part, and then suddenly they make demands. I hope that Britain stays in the EU because they are very important for Germany.
I think what's key is that the starting point is it can't be that everything stays the same, because everyone must recognise that Europe is changing. Yeah. So Britain has a responsibility. If it's not going to join the Eurozone, which I assure you there's no public demand in Britain for the UK to join the Euro. If that is not going to be the case, we can't simply sit on the sidelines and let the Eurozone set the agenda, because it's not simply the UK who won't join the Euro. So there has to be a new architecture which allows countries to be part of the European Union, but not part of the
Stephen, let me play devil's advocate here. If the Eurozone crisis did not exist, if the currency union was doing well, I mean, there was talk several years ago about the euro replacing the dollar as the world's reserve currency. I mean, it was that strong at one point. If we return to that kind of talk one day, who's to say that the British will not start looking at the Eurozone with envy and say, we should give up our pound and we should join the euro? I mean, how can you be so convinced that you'll never have euros in your wallet?
Well, I mean, obviously, maybe for future generations to decide, but I think the real issue here is first of all, the Eurozone crisis is I think still bubbling away under the surface, if you like. The second issue is that what it would take to keep the Eurozone together, I think, is much closer political union. And that is something that, again, was not on the table when Britain was talking about the euro.
And it's not on the table now, right? You don't want a United States of Europe.
No, certainly not. I think
is that a conservative? Does Labour feel the same way?
I think that's a British view. I mean, the Labour leader said, using those exact words, we don't want a United States.
But where does that? I mean, that's a knee-jerk reaction that comes from you. Is there an instinctive suspicion that you have when you think about Brussels and when you think about Europe? I mean, do the British really trust what the continentals do?
Well, I wouldn't put it in such terms. I think that there's. I mean, again, as I said, it's a cost-benefit analysis, and I think that's the way the British government has always approached it. I mean, there are things about Europe that we like. As you said, the single market and trade are issues that the UK likes and would like to go further. The UK is actually one of the few countries that actually implements all the single market rules. Mm-hmm. On foreign policy, we recognise that if Europe can speak together, there is added value in the European Union doing things together. But there is definitely a sort of natural suspicion about centralising powers in Brussels, because it's a very simple way of looking at it. And basically, you water down national democracy as soon as you take decisions in Brussels, and you have to be clear about what is the added value of taking a decision in Brussels rather than in the member state.
Let me pull in Moritz here. Moritz, you're the next generation, the young generation here in Germany. Can you understand the skepticism and the suspicion that comes from Britain towards Europe?
Yeah, David Cameron in his speech said that they are the island nation and maybe they have a different view to the continental kind of view. You're right that I have different or more idealistic way to see Europe, but there's one point I don't get. You're talking about the referendum, but there are frequently elections in England. So you have it's always that the English people, or in other countries in Europe as well, that the people don't have the possibility to join the and to talk in Europe, to have a voice in Europe.
So you're
but
saying
they have the elections for the European Parliament and they have the national parliaments. I don't get this point.
They have their voice. I mean, that's a good question, right? I mean,
yeah, that is a good question. I think the European Parliament elections.
An additional referendum.
Sure. I mean, the European elections, I think, aren't the place to settle constitutional questions about the future of Europe because they're very specific about electing MEPs to the European Parliament. Right. General elections, I think that's true, but the problem is that and this is partly a domestic issue, because in the UK, that politicians have lost the trust of the people on this issue. Not just the Labour Party, but across the board. And I think that's why it has to. That's why I think in the end it's going to have to be settled on this issue in a specific case.
Are you praying at night that David Cameron does not take this all the way, and that some reform is found so that he can save face and not put EU membership to a referendum?
Well, I think he will put it to a referendum.
Do you think that will happen?
I think in some ways, if we can get something, a real change in the European Union, actually reaffirming our vows, if you use that metaphor early on, it wouldn't be a bad thing. But I think the key is it's not. This isn't just for the UK. It's in Europe's interest to actually. I mean, if it becomes the case where basically you say. The European Union is scared of referendums, scared of democracy, scared of change, and scared of reform. That's not a very good message to send either to the rest of the world or to European citizens.
Yeah. All right, but we will see what happens, and we'll see if one day you've got euros in your wallet, Stephen.
I strongly doubt it.
We'll see what the future holds. All right, let's move on. It was 80 years this week, 80 years ago, that the Nazis came to power here in Germany. Now, the years that followed would see a Second World War and the systematic murder of millions of minorities here in Europe. It is Germany's darkest chapter, and some who survived it say remembering is almost futile. They say the evil was simply too unspeakable. Well, Germany has not followed that paradigm. In fact, Germany is a leader in the world when it comes to embedding the act of remembering into public policy. There are monuments to the victims of the Nazis across the country. Learning about the atrocities is a staple of school curricula. But as time goes on, there are fewer voices left to give a first-hand account. The act of remembering becomes even more crucial. Well, today we'll talk about how to remember. And we ask if remembering is the same as acknowledging shared guilt. And what about remembering too much? Are we fetishizing the past?
This week, Germans are remembering the 80th anniversary of the assumption of power by the Nazis, with official ceremonies and a series of exhibitions documenting the era. It comes hot on the heels of the anniversary of the liberation of the Auschwitz extermination camp. German President Joachim Gauck visited the Holocaust Memorial in Berlin for International Holocaust Remembrance Day. He spoke with a group of German teenagers, underlying the importance of passing on knowledge of Nazi crimes to a new generation. But Germany's Spiegel magazine chose to mark the anniversaries with an article on stolen art treasures and jewelry owned by prominent Nazis. Is this a healthy sign of a more relaxed attitude to remembering Germany's dark history? Or is it trivializing the Nazi past?
Yeah, let me ask you, Moritz, is Germany doing a good job in remembering its past?
I'm not sure if I'm the right person to decide this.
Well, you're a historian. Mm-hmm. You know, you've looked at the past.
Mm-hmm. I think at least we did quite a good job, but it's not over yet. So we still have the I think the duty to keep on remembering and wondering what happened and why, and commemorating the victims.
And that's why you did the book here. You brought the book here with you. Tell me a little bit about your book.
I just asked my grandfather what he did during the war and what he knew, and during in general his youth, and then fact-checked what his testimony with contemporary sources as letters and.
Was he telling the truth?
It depends. In a lot of times he told the truth, and in other moments, I wouldn't call it lying. I would say it was just the way as he thought or he wanted it to be.
In your book, your grandfather, you said he did not feel collective guilt for what happened during the Third Reich. How did you react to that?
Yeah, that was kind of a difficult moment for me because that was something that I always wanted to hear from him, some kind of regret or something like it's bad what happened, but it was kind of a speechlessness maybe for him it was not possible for him to say something like this in a direct way of communication. He gave us as presents books about this topic, and especially one book that's really critical to the Germans that lived through the Nazi era, and I see this as a non-verbal way of communication.
Did you get the sense that your grandfather was embarrassed about what he had done?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think so.
You describe your
And on the other hand, it's also evasion and omission. And
omission, yeah. Trying to act like it didn't exist. You describe your grandmother as a committed, almost fanatical Nazi. I mean, that's a horrible conclusion for a young man to reach about his grandmother.
Yeah, but I don't want to be misunderstood. I love my grandparents, and I never put that to question. It was just, my intention was to fact check what they did, and to know at least what they did in an objective way, and in a sober way, just relaxed, and just the crimes, that was happening is lying clearly in front of us. We know it, and I just wanted to connect it with the picture of my beloved grandparents.
What has been the reaction to your book?
In my family or in general?
No, in general.
I wasn't expecting this. I wasn't expecting to sit here in front of you in the television. So there are a lot of copies sold. The book has been reviewed from almost every newspaper in Germany. It was reviewed in Brazil, Switzerland, Sweden, Canada. I'm really surprised.
You know, anytime someone does a work like this, it always gets public attention. There are people who argue, there are some academics who argue that people concentrate too much on the Nazi past, that Germany is turned into this monolith of Nazis, and that's the only thing that people say. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, in parts, totally, because we have to see that the National Socialism wasn't an accident of 2 years, 12 years, that without any prehistoric relation, and I think, we have to face the fact that militarism, racism, anti-Semitism were very important roots of Nazism.
You and Sabine are both the young Germans here at the table today. Do both of you, do you share some collective guilt for what your grandparents' generation did? Do you carry responsibility or carry a guilt?
I don't know how you see it, but I would say I'm not guilty at all for anything that happened between 33 or 45.
What do you say, Sabine?
I also don't feel any personal guilt because I just wasn't around, but I feel a certain awareness and an interest. For example, I also tried to research my grandparents' history because I wanted to know what they did. It's something that I grew up with, that you must not forget what
Exactly,
happened.
you must not forget. And Stephen, I know the British media, they love to throw the Nazi icons out all the time when Germany comes up in the media. The countries like Britain, they don't want to let Germany. It's not even about forgetting its history. The Germans, in many ways, are confronted with the history all the time. By countries like England. Do you think they get a fair shake now that so many years have passed?
I think the perception of Germany in Britain has changed a lot. I think the interesting thing was that when this in the wake of Cameron's speech, you had Bild writing this leader article sort of saying we love you crazy Brits, and the next day the Sun, the biggest tabloid in Britain, the top 10 reasons to love Germany, with tongue in cheek and kind of in good humour. So I think the perception of modern Germany and Britain is one that's quite different to me. There are still people who like to remember the Second World War and all the rest of it. And there are still war films occasionally shown on British television. But I think the perception of Germany being a modern country and kind of is well grounded in British society.
There were a couple of surveys that were done last year that said Germany was the most popular country in the world now too. So you have that. Moritz, before we run out of time, we've just got a minute or so. Germany has been praised for confronting its past. More so than the Austrians, more so than the Japanese, more so than the Italians. Does it deserve that reputation?
Yeah, I think so. But
aren't you a product of that?
Yeah, we learned the facts, I think. And I think it's important also to get to a emotional contact and emotionally understand how was it possible that especially people beloved people and reasonable people like the own grandparents maybe took part in. So, and this is the new approach. Okay, the new approach. All right, we're going to have to wrap it up there. Sabine, Moritz, Stephen, thank you for coming in. Stephen, special thanks to you. You were a good sport today, taking it in the chin for England. Thank you very much. That's going to wrap up my agenda this week. Don't forget that you can watch the show again online. You can go to our website. We talk about that every week. It's dw.de/English/agenda. And don't be shy. Tell us what you think about the show. Our inbox is always open at agenda.english@dw.de. I'm Brent Goff in Berlin. Join me next time when I set the agenda.